Session meeting of the San Marcos City Council to order. Today is Tuesday, April 16th of 2024. The time is 3:11. Apologies for the delay. And Ms. Cordova, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prather.
Here.
Mr. Scott. Ms. Garza. Mayor Houston.
I'm here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
I'm here.
Mr. Gleason. And Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
Quorum present, Mayor.
All right, we will go to the citizen comment portion of our program. The City Council will hear citizen comments at work sessions, workshops, and regular meetings. There is a sign-up process. If you wish to speak online, there's an earlier deadline, and a call-in number and link will be provided. You may speak once and not yield time to others. You will have 3 minutes to speak, which starts when you state your name. You'll see the timer on the screen. You'll start in the green. When you're to the yellow, you have less than 20 seconds, and when it's red, your time to speak is up, and a bell will ring. Mayor and City Council will endeavor to ensure that meetings are conducted in a courteous manner and an atmosphere free of defamation, intimidation, personal insults, profanity, or threats of violence. Ms. Cordova, we have a Gary Gazaldo in person to speak today?
Gary? Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Is Gary here? Is Gary in the lobby?
See anybody in that lobby other than our two?
Maybe there's another train. Okay, so we have no citizen comment this evening, and we will move on to item 1, please.
Receive a staff presentation and provide guidance on relocation prior year's Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, funding in preparation for the 2024-2025 application process.
Ms. Reyes? Oh, sorry.
Is that better?
That's helpful, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today's work session presentation is a quick overview of the status of the city's community development block grant programs that were funded in prior years. We are constantly evaluating the progress of the city's community development block grant funding to ensure that it is actively serving community needs and in accordance with council priorities. We seek City Council guidance on whether the funding should be reallocated as part of the current year's application process. I'd like to thank Carol Griffith, Housing and Community Development Manager, and the CDBG staff for their work in pulling together this information and their dedication to San Marcos. I'll now turn it over to Ms. Griffith. Thank you.
Thank you. Annually, the city receives about $713,000 in Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, funding. This stays relatively steady each year, so we expect to be receiving approximately that same amount for next year's funding. The city must propose specific projects and programs for the entire $713,000 in new funding when we submit the action plan in August to HUD. The allocation of CDBG funding takes place through an annual application and review process that runs on a tight schedule. Applications will be received May 6th this year, and the review committee will meet May 10th to create allocation recommendations to provide to City Council. This afternoon, I'm asking City Council for guidance on freeing up some past funding so that it can be reallocated to new projects and programs at the same time as we're allocating the new FY 2025 funding. The guidance received today will let the committee know how much total funding is available to allocate when they're creating the recommendations. This slide shows all open CDBG projects and the year in which they were funded. Staff expects all the projects in white to expend all their funding. The one in gold is Capes Pond Park amenities, and on this one, we're reviewing it. We realize it may be in the floodway. We may not be able to fund it, so you may see that one come back, but we're still reviewing it. So this leaves the projects highlighted in yellow, and I will talk about each one of these individually. These are ones where we think perhaps some funding could be freed up and reallocated to different projects. Please note that today, staff is only asking for your guidance on how much funding can be freed up, not what we're gonna do with it. This funding will be combined with the FY 2025 funding as the staff committee is considering applications and will bring forward recommendations for the whole amount at the June 4th public hearing. Also, please note that any funding freed up for allocation today cannot be used for social services because the city spends the maximum allowed on social services in CDBG funding annually. So our first item is land acquisition for housing. In fiscal year 2019, the city council allocated $164,900 in hopes of purchasing land that could be used for construction of affordable housing. In the years since, as you know, lot prices in San Marcos have been so high that purchasing a lot for sale will not allow the construction of affordable housing. That's what we've found as we've reviewed various lots that have come forward. In the future, staff would like to look into working with the taxing entities to obtain foreclosed lots. So we'll look into that in the future. But for now, in the meantime, this funding must be spent by September 2026, or it has to be returned to HUD. So staff is recommending at this time that we go ahead and reallocate all $164,900 to other projects so it can be spent timely. Next one is housing demolition. In fiscal year 2020, City Council allocated $125,000 for housing demolition for cases like this one where a house had burned and the family did not have the funding to take it down, which left blight in the city. So far, $6,500 has been spent and another $15,000 in projects is in process. These frame houses require $6,000 to $12,000 each for demolition. Spending is slow for this program in part due to title issues, which have to be cleared before we can demolish a house, and in part due to lack of demand. Therefore, staff recommends freeing up, $67,500 of this funding to be reallocated with the FY 2025 funding. And I have a table at the end of this presentation that will summarize all the amounts that we're recommending. Homebuyer assistance. The Homebuyer Assistance Program provides up to $12,000 for down payment and closing costs for a low to moderate income family to purchase a home if they have not purchased a home in the prior 3 years. Because of housing prices compared to the requirement that people earn less than 80% of the area median income, it is difficult to find buyers within the income range who qualify for the program. Staff has marketed this program through utility bill notices, social media, the city's website, flyers at city facilities and town meetings, and contact with realtors and the Four River Realtors Association. In staff's opinion, this funding could be put to use in a way that serves San Marcos families who have low to moderate incomes in a better way. I wanted to give you some information about this program as well. In the past 3 years, we've had 16 approved applications and 3 denied. All 16 were for newly constructed homes. 6 applicants were already San Marcos residents, and 10 were moving to San Marcos. This program is enabling new home builders to sell homes to families who might otherwise not qualify. However, we are concerned that we're contributing to creating a mortgage burden on the families that will be difficult for them to sustain. Staff recommends reallocating all $134,100 and discontinuing this program. Next one is rental housing, rehab, and repair. For this one, we're recommending continuing the rental housing, rehab, and repair program, but folding this funding in to the existing housing, rehab, and repair program to make one program that can serve all needs. So longtime San Marcos families have sometimes passed houses down through generations. Code compliance officers noted that in some cases, families of limited means had inherited houses that they then rent out or allow their relatives to live in. But they're not really landlords that have available income. So they struggle to maintain the houses. Typically, housing rehab programs are only for owner-occupied homes using CDBG funding. We created this program to provide for situations where the owner of a house has low to moderate income but does not live at the house. So we can create a separate pot of money. This program has been marketed alongside the owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program at workshops, utility bills, in newspaper ads, and on social media. So far, we have not received any applications that meet the criteria for this funding. But we do have a waiting list of about 40 for the owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program. Staff recommends freeing up all $271,940 of this funding for reallocation. We will recommend to the staff committee that this rental program and the funding be folded into the owner-occupied housing rehab program to make a general rehab program. We can still make this program available, but we could then use this funding on our waiting list for the owner-occupied housing program. I have contacted code compliance, and they are in favor of this recommendation. Last one, prior year's funding, we have $16,649 available. Over time, as projects close out, they sometimes do not spend the exact amount of their funding, leaving small portions that can be reallocated in later years. At this time, the city has $16,649 in leftover funding from closed projects in prior years. So we're basically scraping any little cents and dollars that we have left. Staff recommends, of course, including this funding in the amount allocated for projects in the FY 2025 application cycle. So here's that table that summarizes the recommendations. Staff is requesting City Council guidance on whether the amounts shown here can be freed up from previously funded programs and reallocated during the FY 2025 review process. Again, the Staff Review Committee will meet May 10th to create recommendations based on the funding available, which will then be presented to City Council and the public at a hearing on June 4th. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, council, questions? I'll be asking your preference in a moment. I will ask a question about the rental rehab and repair. You're talking about folding that into the program that we're running, or one of the programs where we're doing Mission Able, or that other group that focuses on veterans?
Oh, that's a great question. It would be the one we're running.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
On the demolition part, my understanding was a house that burned here. Does that get charged to the owner of the property? And if it does, where does that money, who do they pay that money to, and where does it go?
So the way it works is the city actually hires the contractor to do the demolition after we clear through all the title issues or whatever we need to identify the actual owner and get their permission to do it. We do put a lien on the property for 5 years, similar to what we do for housing rehab. If the property does not sell within the 5 years, then the city just, has donated that funding to the property. But if it does, then we're paid back and we can use that as funding for the next demolition.
Then it goes back to the
CDBG.
Goes
yeah.
back to the same program.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
But that's only if they profit at least that much money, correct?
right. So that's assuming that the lot sells and, yeah. So we have a lien on the property that just says, hey, if you have this much profit left over, we
Right.
get.
But if it's 5,000 and for whatever reason they can only sell it for 4, then we're not
Yeah.
looking for any money back, correct?
The way it would work is I think our lien would take the 4. I'd have to check with Sam, but yeah.
The lien would do new, I'm
So
sorry?
if it sold for 4,000 and we had a $5,000 lien, our lien we would
You
take the
would take
4,000 from the
as much
family.
as could be collected.
Yeah,
Okay,
before the family gets the rest of the profit.
right.
Right.
Okay, but if it sells for more than that, then it's like any other debt,
Yeah,
any other lien.
sure,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Okay, council, you can either tell me how you feel about each of these. Oh, I do have a question. On that land acquisition, I can still hold out hope that we're going to get something through those tax sales, vacant lots only. Can we leave some in there? Or if we reallocate this and then 3 months from now an opportunity comes up, will we not have an opportunity to purchase that?
So the way it would work is, what I recommend is that we go ahead and reallocate the whole thing, because we have an 8-year window to spend funding, and we're up to 2 years, so we want to go ahead
Right.
and get it into a project. We can always bring back an amendment to city council to say, hey, we need to fund this new program for acquiring foreclosed properties, and then y'all could approve it at that time, and then we could move forward with a new program.
I was thinking just leave 15,000 in there in case something comes up. And then at some point, I hope that there'll be another program that we could do that with that doesn't have that 2-year deadline hanging over our head, correct?
If you leave the 15,000, I'm sorry, I hope I'm understanding. If you leave the 15,000, we stand to lose it in 2026. And so you're kind of leaving it hanging out,
No, my point
Yeah.
is, we've got 2 years to resolve that. So I'm good with all the rest of this, but I just hate to miss an opportunity that might come up 6 months from now, certainly less than 2 years, an opportunity that comes up 6 months from now, and we don't have any funding to do it.
So what we've seen so far for land acquisition is that the lots are running at 150,000 each, is what we have seen at some
The
point.
vacant
No,
lots?
50,000, sorry, 50,000 each. What I'm trying to say, yes, even vacant or things that have things that need to be torn down.
Whoa.
We have seen, so we would have to first get a program set up with the other taxing entities, which would take quite a bit of work just to get it in place with agreements on how we would handle the foreclosed properties. So we don't see that happening until next year.
Well, we started on that quite some time ago, and we weren't successful for various and sundry reasons. But at that time, there were vacant lots going for like $3,000 to $5,000. And our staff, Abby had done a great presentation on the return on investment. It was wonderful. I did not know that vacant lots were, okay.
Yeah.
So I just keep holding out hope that we're going to get something there. But we could still come back if we haven't allocated the whole 655 by then. We could still use that money, but would it still have the 2-year?
So if you leave it in land acquisition, the 2018 program, it would have that 2-year deadline.
Okay,
What I would recommend, just in case you want to consider it, is doing an amendment. So we could come back to you at any time during the year, and it would take us a month or two to do a substantial amendment
okay,
to create an activity and allocate funding.
okay. I don't want to miss an opportunity that
Yeah.
might present itself.
I get it.
Okay, we'll wait, but when we reallocate this, and they have different years, I think, is the time bomb still ticking on that 67.5 if we do the reallocation? And so we're looking at finding some way to spend that money before the deadline in 2026 for that?
For the 164.9, that's the one with the 2026 deadline.
I'm talking about any of them.
So-
Is the deadline to spend that money, even if we reallocate it, still that same deadline?
No.
Okay.
So we would have folded it into, let me think.
When we reallocate it, the clock starts over?
We would spend that funding first, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm with you.
So we would draw it down first.
I'm with you.
If it's reallocated, yeah.
And that's why we need people to keep up with this like you, and thank you for
So-
doing that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then I'm good with what's up here. Council, your thought? Mr. Prather,
I'm good with it, yes, ma'am.
Matt, Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm good, but I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the land acquisition, do y'all have to go through the county when they do an auction? And if y'all do, is there a redemption time for the previous owners to come back and claim that property?
If we did go through an auction like that, yes, there's a 2-year redemption period.
Okay,
Yeah.
then, that's all. Thank
And
you.
what we're seeing at auction is the prices are market. So
Well-
that's, yeah.
You know, I think when the mayor was talking about the prices for a lot, you're right, they're about 50 grand.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
And talking about
Yeah.
25 by 120 lot.
It amazes me. Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
But if we get it early on, we get it for the amount that's owed, correct?
If we had an agreement in place with the taxing entities for first pick for the city,
That's where those lower prices were.
that's what we want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, are you good with this, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, it's just, we got all
Okay.
these people going to the auction and
Yeah.
overbuying that stuff, overpaying for it. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else you need from us?
Well, I do need your vote on the guidance. Can we go ahead and reallocate all of these, the funding
Yes,
listed
we all
here?
just said yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Then I'm good.
Mayor, the home buyer assistance program, I just would like to offer that to our residents, not to unresidents, people that live in Austin or San Antonio or Dallas or wherever. Is that, I want our residents to benefit from this.
Okay.
Is that
She
possible?
explained that earlier, but would you go through why people are not qualifying?
No,
Why
she-
there's dollars left? Is that what you're talking about?
No, she said they weren't requiring for the rehab, for the rental rehab.
No, you said
Yeah.
home buyer assistance.
So
Yeah.
Which one are you talking about?
home buyer assistance.
So right now, home buyer assistance, we have it available for anybody who's buying a house in San Marcos. So what you're talking about is the 10 out of 16 that moved into San Marcos using that funding. I would think we could change the policies and procedures to require residents in San Marcos before you're buying. I would note, we've had trouble moving that funding anyway, and so
Yeah, if
We
we
can-
had more people applying than what we had money, then yes, I'm with you on that. But right now, we don't have very many people qualifying for it regardless, and these are people that are wanting to move to San Marcos, buy a house,
Yeah.
pay property taxes to us, yay.
And
Yeah.
those qualifications, are they set in stone where they can be modified or they cannot?
I believe we could modify that qualification where we could say you have to show us that you've resided in San Marcos for, 2 years before now, or whatever we would want to set. We could do that.
But explain again why people are not qualifying, because of the income limitation to,
Compared to the property prices. So they have to qualify for a mortgage that's pretty high.
Yeah.
And they have to have a pretty low income to get our assistance.
and that's why
So-
there's not people applying.
Yeah.
So limiting it to San Marcos people doesn't help if people aren't, I mean, they can apply now and they're not
But-
qualifying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we could modify it where they could qualify, I don't know if that could be done or not, but just a thought. going
But
through my mind.
remember, this is federal money and there's a lot of strings on it. That 80% is required by the federal law
Yeah.
and the source of the money. We can't
Right.
change that.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Okay.
we're good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for going through all of this and providing such a lovely presentation. It was very well done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Reyes, are we done with this part? All right, then, Ms. Cordova, let's go into item 2.
Sorry about that. The City Council will convene an executive session pursuant to the following section of the Texas Government Code. A, Section 551.087, Economic Development, to deliberate regarding possible economic development incentives for Project Snapdragon and Project Peanut Butter. B, Section 551.071, Consultation with attorney to receive legal advice regarding a proposed cost-sharing agreement for construction of a wastewater treatment plant. C, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Section 551.072, real property to receive legal advice and deliberate regarding the possible acquisition of real property interest necessary for the Highway 80 Utilities Project, River Ridge Drainage Project, and Linda Drive Improvements Project. D, Section 551.072, real property to deliberate regarding the possible lease, use, or disposition of land in the vicinity of South Edward Gary Street and South LBJ Drive.
Looking for a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Motion from Mr.
Second.
Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Prather. Let's vote.
Mr. Prather?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Ms. Garza? Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason? And Mr. Mendoza?
Aye.
All right. We will go into executive session at 3:34. That's the same guy that wasn't. Okay. Are y'all ready? All right. Are we rolling?
We're rolling, Mayor.
All right. We have returned from our executive session, which ended at 5:32. Now is time for question and answer with press and public. The person signed up is not here. Is there anyone else who has questions and answers? Or questions? Or answers? Okay, we will close that part, and I will accept a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion by Mr. Mendoza, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. Let's vote on adjournment.
Okay. Mr. Prather? Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Garza? Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason? And Mr. Mendoza?
Aye.
And our meeting is adjourned. We'll see you back shortly.